Hello, welcome to the Quantity Surveying Studio. My name is Akhil Krishna, and in this video, I'll be giving you a brief explanation on the various FIDIC timelines. I'll be making this video into two parts, so this is part 1 and the remaining will be continued in the next part. So let's move into the video. Now let's understand what FIDIC is. The full form of FIDIC is Fédération Internationale des Ingénieurs Consuls, or it is also called International Federation of Consulting Engineers. This organization was formed in 1913 by 3 countries, Belgium, France and Switzerland. This organization mainly they outlined some conditions that needs to be followed in the construction industry globally. Now these are the different types of FIDIC books. It will depend on the type of project. Like if it is a normal building project, it will be the red book that is being followed. If it is a plant and design project, it will be the yellow book. Silver book is used for EPC or turnkey projects. The orange book is used for a design, build and turnkey project. The golden book is used for design, build and operate projects, and the green book is used for relatively small type of projects. So depending on the type of projects, the type of book will be different. So the basic structure of FIDIC conditions, the basic structure will be for all type of books, it will be generally the same. So these you can see that these are the different structures. These are the different headings that will be followed in each book, like the general provisions, what the employer, engineer, contractor and nominated subcontractors responsibilities are and what they should carry out in a contract, the staff, labor, plant, material, workmanship, the delays, when the commencement date is, what the tests on completions are, how it will be carried out, when the defect liability starts and what the tests are after completion, how the measurements of the works are done, how variations needs to be notified and how it is verified, how it is determined, the price of the contract and the payment, how the payments needs to be done, the different timelines. So all these are the main headings that will be, you can see in the FIDIC books. I will not be going into detail of each headings in this video. Maybe in another video I'll try to explain each definitions, each headings in separate videos. In this video I'll be mainly focusing on the important timelines that needs to be followed. So let's move into each timelines. Now first is like when the contractor receives a letter of acceptance. When he receives a letter of acceptance, within 28 days, the contract agreement needs to be signed between the parties, that is the employer and the contractor. So once the tender is finalized and a contractor is selected, he will receive the letter of acceptance that see you have been selected for the project and under these terms and conditions. So once that letter is received, within 28 days the agreement needs to be signed by both parties. Now the contractor can request for an evidence from the employer for the financial arrangements. Like the contractor needs to know that sufficient fund is there to throughout the project time, so that then only they can be satisfied, or they can be convinced that the funds will be there throughout the project to carry out the works. So within that request is sent, within 28 days the employer has to submit all the documents showing that the funds are available to carry out the entire projects and they will be paid, the contractor will be paid properly. Now next, employer gives a notice to contractor for replacing his engineer and details of the new engineer. So this notice should be done within 42 days from the new engineer coming at site. So if the employer feels that the current engineer is not doing his duties or responsibilities properly, so he needs to send a notice to contractor that he is going to change the engineer and the new engineer details. So this needs to be done within 42 days before the new engineer comes at site. Next is when the contractor, once he receives the letter of acceptance, within 28 days the contractor needs to submit his performance security to the employer. So what performance security is, I have explained this in a previous video. You can just look into it. There is a video where I have explained the different guarantees or securities in a construction project, so you can check that. Now next is the contractor to renew the validity of a performance security. So this needs to be done within 28 days once the contractor has realized that the work, his performance security is not being returned back, or the work will be not completed within the validity date. Like the performance security will be having a validity date. So within 28 days before the validity date, if the contractor is sure that the works will not be completed and the performance security will not be received back from the employer, then he needs to renew this to a new date depending on the new completion date. Next is the contractor to pay the amount due to an employer. So there might be some amounts that the employer needs to get from the contractor. So this needs to be paid within 42 days. So if it is not paid within 42 days, the employer can claim under the performance security, whatever the value is mentioned in the performance security. Under the clause in the performance security, it will be mentioned that if the contractor does not pay an amount that is due to the employer within 42 days, he can claim. So this he can claim. Now, and the employer gives notice to contractor for remedying a default, for correcting some default. So if this is not done in 42 days after giving the notice, then again the employer can also claim under the performance security. This clause will also be mentioned under the performance security if this contract, the FIDIC is being followed in this contract. The contractor will receive the performance certificate. Once he receives the performance certificate after the work is completed, within 21 days, the employer needs to return back the performance security. Next, the contractor gives notice to the employer or the engineer regarding the commencement of a subcontractor's work. So this needs to be given within 42 days before the subcontractor comes to the site and begins the work. Next is the contractor gives notice to the engineer regarding the delivery of any planned or any major items to the site. So this notice needs to be given within 21 days before the plant or the item actually arrives at the site. Then the month and date. From the month and date, within 7 days, the contractor needs to submit the monthly progress report. That is, before the first week of every month, the monthly progress needs to be submitted to the employer. Now, engineer gives notice to contractor for attending any test. So this needs to be given within 24 hours of attending the actual attendance of the test. So if the notice is given that the engineer will be attending a test, that should be given within 24 hours before attending the test. Engineer gives notice to contractor for commencing the work. So this needs to be given within 7 days before the actual commencement of work begins. So before the commencement of work, 7 days notice is given so that he can actually come to the site and start the work. Next is once the contractor receives the letter of acceptance, within 42 days, the commencement date should begin. So that the work should begin at site within 42 days after receiving the letter of acceptance. Now the engineer gives notice to contractor for commencing the work. So once this notice is given, within 28 days, the contractor needs to submit a detailed program to engineer. This will be done mainly by the planning department, maybe Primavera or any planning software. The engineer receives the detailed time program. So once the engineer receives the detailed time program, within 21 days, if the engineer feels that the program is not proper or it is not complying with the overall work completion, then he can give notice to the contractor telling that you need to rectify it and this is not proper. Now the work on any plan or delivery of plan gets suspended by employer. If that happens, within 28 days, the contractor is entitled for payment of these plant or materials after making it the employer's property. So if the work gets suspended by the employer and if 28 days is over, so the employer can make this into their property and they can pay the amount that is entitled for these plant and material to the contractor. Now, when the work gets suspended by the employer, after 84 days, contractor can request the permission. They can give through notice that asking permission to continue the work. Now, when after the contractor requests this permission to proceed the work after that 84 days of suspension, if the employer doesn't respond after 28 days, the contractor can treat this as suspension of work. So he can give a notice, the contractor can give a notice telling that the work has been suspended, we are suspending the work. The contractor gives notice to engineer about readiness of test on completion. So once this notice is given, within 21 days, all the tests needs to be ready to be carried out. The test need not actually start. It should be all the works required to make the test ready should be completed. And once this is ready, when the tests on completions are ready, within 14 days, the actual test needs to be carried out at site. Now the engineer gives notice to contractor regarding any delay in carrying out the test on completion. So once this notice is given, within 21 days, the test on completion has to be carried out. So if there is any delay, once the notice is given, within 21 days, the contractor should actually carry out the test. Now the engineer gives notice to contractor regarding delay in carrying out the tests on completion, and if at all within 21 days the contractor doesn't respond or doesn't carry out the test, the employer can carry out the test at the risk and cost of the contractor. So they can assign their people to carry out the test, and the cost, whatever cost is incurred on it, will be accounted on the contractor. The contractor gives notice to the engineer for issuance of taking over certificate. So once the work is completed, the contractor will ask for a taking over certificate. So once that notice is given, within 14 days, the work should be ready for taking over. So the contractor should, within the 14 days of the completion date, contractor needs to give a notice telling that the work will be completed within 14 days. Now the contractor gives notice to engineer for issuance of technical certificate, and within 28 days. So within 14 days the test will be ready, and within 28 days the engineer should they should give the taking over certificate or they should reject the application giving their reasons. Now once the contractor gives notice to the engineer for issuance of taking over certificate, and if the engineer does not respond within 28 days, then the contractor can assume that a taking of certificate is deemed to have been issued for the work that for which the taking of certificate has been applied for. So this part is completed. Now there are again some timelines which I'll be continuing in another video. So until then, stay tuned. Hope this video was informative. Until the next video, happy learning. Bye.